Good afternoon and welcome to our celebration of service. I'm Ron Barnes and it's an honor to be your president. In honor of the commander, I've decided we're going to say the pledge today. So if you would stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd appreciate it. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The thought for the day, seen as this is Black History Month, comes from Martin Luther King Jr. Be the best of whatever you are. We have a reflection today with Trent Decker. Trent?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, good afternoon will work, right, Rotarians? It is awesome to be with you and to do this. I haven't done a reflection, I think, since my first stint in Rotary about 2007. So if I'm rusty, please forgive me. But I wanted to pick a topic that meant something to me today, and in doing so, maybe means something to you as well. And in Rotary, we talk about leadership a lot. And when we talk about leadership, we're really talking about leaders and their experience and all the things that are factors in all of that. So what I wanted to do is share something that I use in my classroom at the Kelly School as I interact with leaders at all levels. And that is attacking the notion around confidence that affects a lot of leaders. And as I talk about this, as I talk about confidence in this reflection, I'm going to encourage you, if you consider yourself the most confident person in the world, pat yourself on the back. That's awesome. Be aware there are those in your midst who may not have that confidence, and they can benefit from your mentoring, your ear, your smile, and your awareness of this issue. So let me talk about this just for a moment. When I began my PhD program about 3 years ago, I was really interested in leaders and imposter syndrome. And for those of you that know anything about imposter syndrome, it's that feeling that you do not belong wherever it is that you've been thrust or found yourself in leadership. I tell my students, it's that little tug on the sleeve that says, I don't necessarily belong here, or maybe somebody else would be better, or maybe I shouldn't take this opportunity. And I urge them to resist that. But when we think about imposter syndrome, whether or not we believe in that, whether or not we subscribe to that, and we think about confidence, one of the things that we know about confidence, and specifically imposter syndrome, is that research shows it happens in most nations in the world. From as far away as Iran to here in the United States, to the United Kingdom, to Korea, we see elements that researchers have found imposter syndrome exists. And I think specifically to my own experience, I was doing a career fair once and helping out with some students. And I had about 20 students that had come in or so that were just, super triple chair of the Glee Club and awesome. And they were okay on their confidence. And I had one final student who said, you won't be able to help me. You won't be able to do anything for me. I'm in bad shape. And that was a challenge to me to help this student. And I said, tell me about your story. And she said, you won't be able to help me, Professor. I swear I've just been a waitress. Well, my ears perked up at this because I waited my tables through college. I paid my way that way, and many of you probably did as well. And I said, tell me more about that waiting tables. And she said, well, I had a manager who was not there when he was there. He had some substance use issues, and he just was not very predictable and a lot going on. So I kind of filled in for him a lot. But you won't be able to help me. I've not done that much. And I said, tell me even more about yourself. I really want to know. Because in all the waiting at tables I had done, I'd never experienced anything like that. And she said, well, one time the restaurant caught on fire, but you're not going to be able to help me much. Well, the restaurant caught on fire, and I got all the customers out, and I got all the back of the house out. And then I dealt with the law enforcement, fire department, all that to get the insurance paperwork started because the owner was a couple states away. but you're not going to be able to help me much because I've not done that much. I said to her, I said, back when I hired people, you sound like somebody I would want to hire. You sound like a person who has credibility of experience. You sound like a person that I want to boost your confidence a little bit. And ever since then, and a lot of other students, I have come up with 4 things that I remind folks. And I'm going to close today by talking to you about this. And maybe you've got people on your team you need to share this with as well. And I hope that you will consider it. Number 1, tell them the following. And if you're listening in the room and you've got some confidence issues, take this from the following. Number 1, you belong in the room. You belong in the room no matter what you, your mind, or anyone else ever told you, whether that was on 4th grade playground when someone said something stupid that stuck with you, or it was today when you looked in the mirror and you didn't see it. You belong in that room. You've earned it. Congratulations. We want you there. Number 2, audience members want to hear from you. They do. We've not taught listening skills very well, but they do want to hear from you. They want to hear your story. They need to do a better job at listening, but they do want to hear from you. Number 3, when you look at all those things you've gone through, whether the restaurant that caught on fire, that divorce that was just awful, or that work day that never seemed to end, you have been through a lot. That is your credibility. Inventory those moments. Own them. They are assets. You bought them. They're paid for. They're part of your credibility. And finally, when you choose to take that credibility and share from those experiences, you give a priceless gift to others. But that's your story. It's not someone else's story. So confidence. It's a funny thing that eludes many. It's a funny thing that creeps up on others. And often it can hide our credibility, our leadership in the moment. Rotarians, as you think about your organization and what you do, how do we encourage those new leaders who will take our places, support our work, help our missions? I think we do it by boosting their confidence and listening. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Trent. Now to introduce our guest, Stacy Bruce.
Thank you, Trent. After that reflection, I feel so confident to introduce our guest today, and I feel so welcome to be in this room. Please join me today in introducing our guest. We have several. A guest of the speaker, we have Bryce Drake. If you would please stand so we can all recognize you. Okay. We also have Chaz Patrick. He is a Washington, Indiana Rotarian. A guest of Chaz is Blaine Zimmerman. And in Jim Bright's normal fashion, he has 3 guests. He has June Wan, who is a Rotarac, Thomas Horak, I apologize. And we also have Elliot Nowacki and Joe Dixon. All right, and we also have 2 Rotaracs today. I apologize. I announced Junwan first, but Junwan and Yaya Kedar. Okay. And I believe that's all the guests we have today. Thank you.
Joy, do we have any guests online?
Yes, President Ron, we certainly do. We have David Willett joining us from Plymouth Rotary in Michigan. We have Peter Goodwin, and we have Bob Walker, who is our Rotarian in our club, but he's guest in Florida. He's coming to us from Florida. So
thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome all of our guests. And if you're interested in following up with possible membership in Rotary, anybody at the table can help you talk about the great things that we're doing. It's all service above self. We have some birthdays to celebrate. Glenda Murray, February 24th. We have Roy Graham, March 1st. And also on March 1st, Eric Coyne. So happy birthday, guys. We have some Rotary anniversaries too. John Hobson, 39 years. Congratulations, John. Carlos Laverty, 1 year. Chaz Moltener, 1 year, and John Jody, 1 year. Congratulations, folks. We do have time for happy dollars, so let's see who's happy out there today. We got one up here that's happy. Charlie?
Many of you met my daughter, Erin, who's an aviator. She was a Rotary Scholar in high school, and she is a Paul Harris Fellow. And next month, she gets promoted to Admiral.
Oh. You got to be very proud of her, Charlie.
$20. First, two things. First, how about those women against Iowa? Let's just put it out there. And the men are playing tonight, oh well. And then the other thing, the tomatoes and zinnias are starting to come up in my seedlings, and I got to actually put them outside yesterday. I have to take them back tonight, but it's exciting that spring's coming.
We have a winner in our speech contest. You'll be introduced to that person very soon. And I'm so glad that we're going to have a wonderful representation at the district competition in the speech area. Thank you.
While Roseanne and I were away for the last several months recuperating from various ailments, and we're happy we're now back, a wonderful thing happened in our lives. Our great-granddaughter was born. So we got $20 in celebration of Mia.
I just want to thank whoever started the buddy program for lunch, because it got Gus and Gus Kellis and Bill Murphy and I together. We've been talking about doing that for a long time, but we didn't get around to it.
$5 for my lovely wife, Morgan, celebrating her not 40 birthday last week. So many of you have met her, and she's even spoken to the club. So thanks. Happy birthday, Morgan.
Anybody online want to have a happy dollar?
Yeah,
I do.
Yep.
So I'm thrilled to give $20 in honor of the Community Foundation of Bloomington, Monroe County. They have really come through for a lot of local charitable organizations, including the one I work for, the Lake Monroe Water Fund. And 18 of us have received a matching endowment grant of $50,000, up to $50,000 was the maximum. So organizations have gotten that up to that amount. So I'm just really happy to be kicking that off soon.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to say how happy I am to be back after being away for quite a while. I haven't seen a single old friend, but I've seen a bunch of friends of long standing that it's wonderful to see again. And I see a bunch of people that are about to be my new friends. So it's a real thrill to be back.
Glad to have you back, Tim. Thank you very much. And also a shout goes out to Tim Jessen and Wendell St. John, who were involved in the speech contest over the last week. And we really appreciate your efforts on that. I also was in Louisville over the weekend, and the sportscaster said that the IU men gave up defense for Lent. So think about that. Before I introduce Eric Coyne, who's going to introduce our speaker, I was sharing with the commander that I had visited both the Naval Academy and the Air Force Academy, and he thought, there ought to be something I can lay on this to help Eric understand the difference between the two academies. And he didn't realize that I went through the ROTC program, Air Force ROTC program. So it was hard for me to get too disparaging on the men in blue. But I will say the Naval Academy had the best quarterback to come out of there in a long time. And he played in Dallas for many years, Roger Starbuck. So shout out to the Naval Academy for that. Now, Eric, the floor is yours.
All right, well, it is, well, good afternoon, first off. It's great to see everybody here today. Appreciate everyone being out here. We have it's a real treat for me to get to introduce Commander Martinez. Since he arrived, we have obviously the service academy connection and then the military service connection. And so we've had the opportunity to become friends and go out quite regularly. The first time we met, it's actually a great story. He showed up really dressed up because he was like, I'm meeting this retired colonel and a chancellor. I should probably be proper. And so he showed up all proper. And I don't know, I was wearing like shorts and a t-shirt. And he was like, oh, wait, you're the chancellor though. What do you, so we've had a lot of fun over the last 7-8 months, getting to know one another and spend some time together. So it is a real treat for me to get to introduce him here today. We're honored to have with us as well Mark Dobbs and Bruce Drake from Crane, who really are the powerhouses behind everything that happens down at Crane and make Commander Martinez look good. So thank you, gentlemen, for being out here today. So Commander Luis Martinez goes by Homie, and when you're an aviator, you like to be called by your call sign. And so I think for a lot of folks, it's awkward when you hear me refer to him as Homie. You're like, well, that's not his name, but that's what he genuinely wants to be called, and you can call him Homie. Like, that's okay. And most aviators will prefer you call them by their call sign. There's many times if you actually call them by their first name, they won't answer you. So a native of El Paso, Texas, Homie graduated in 2007 from the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, which I will say is probably it is an idyllic location. With a bachelor's degree in economics, 3 years later, he was designated a Navy flight officer. In March 2011, Homie reported to the Tiger Tails of Airborne Command and Control Squadron 125, where he served in several key officer positions, and he completed deployments aboard the aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. In January 2014, he joined the Greyhawks of VAW 120 as an instructor naval flight officer, and he served in a number of key positions, including auxiliary personnel officer. Homie later served aboard the aircraft carriers USS Abraham Lincoln and the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower in support of strategic deterrence operations in the Arabian Sea. In March 2022, he graduated from the United States Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island, another idyllic location. The Navy has a lot of great locations, by the way. I'd still pick Air Force, but with a Master's of Arts in Defense and Strategic Studies. Commander Martinez has logged over 1,300 E2 flight hours, and he has received many personal, unit, and service awards. He was named to his current position in June 2023, and the title of his presentation today is Indiana Naval Installation and Our Support to U.S. Warfighters at Home and Abroad. Fellow Rotarians, please join me in extending a warm Rotary welcome to Homie.
How are y'all doing today? Good? Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for inviting me here. It's a total honor to be here and a privilege. I'm new to the area, never been to the Midwest before. Indiana, who'd have thunk it, right? An amazing jewel. People always ask me, what's your favorite part of Indiana? It's like, well, there's so many, but honestly, it comes down to the people. Y'all are just a cut above others out there. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for the gratitude and for the warm comfort y'all show me. So thank you again. So if we'll go ahead and let's see if I get this right here. Hey, like he said, Commander Luis Martinez, call sign Homie, currently the base commander at Naval Support Activity, or NSA Crane. A little bit about me, right? I grew up in Arizona, I was born in Mesa. I lived in a tiny town called Kearney, 2,000 people. There's a copper mining community, very similar to Crane, turns out, right? You had the main kind of area where everyone worked in the center, and then all these communities around it. At 12, I moved to El Paso, Texas, and then from there, as Eric kind of suggested, I went. So if you look at some of my career, I'm a naval flight officer. So I'm not the pilot, but I'm the one in the back of this particular aircraft, the E-2 Hawkeye, right? And I'm one of the sensor operators. So I run the sensors, radar, IFF. I work communications. I work link infrastructure. I am command and control. The best way I can apply what I say is if the admiral of the strike group is the head coach of a football team, I was either the offensive or defensive coordinator, depending on the mission set, right? So that's kind of what I did, no joke. So one of the carriers I've been on, there's the E2D and the E2C Hawkeye. We were the screw tops. Most recently, that was where I served my department head tour. So if you see the picture to the upper right corner with the scroll on the top, that's us. My squadron and ship are currently out there operating in the Red Sea as we speak. Got to do some awesome port calls. Got to go to Hong Kong, which you see in the bottom right-hand or bottom left-hand corner for you. And then Dubai and the UAE in the bottom right-hand corner. Some amazing places I probably never would have been to otherwise. Also got to go see Manila, got to go see Perth, Australia. And it was just amazing to kind of go see that different perspective of what's out there, getting away from what I grew up in. And then in the bottom, you'll kind of see one of my joint tours, not my joint tour, excuse me. I was with Carrier Air Wing staff. So I was in charge of integrated air and missile defense, a bunch of other things with the strike group as well. It was a great opportunity. So what brought me here? So you say, Crane, what happened? It's like, well, let's talk about this. By a show of hands, who knew we had a naval installation in Indiana? Okay, I did not. So y'all are well-versed, right? So people say, hey, what made you come to Crane? It's like, well, they're called orders, right? You're told you are going to Crane. And I'm gonna be honest, I was like, where's Crane? Like, I didn't know. So I had to go up on Google and I had to search and I was like, oh my goodness, like I did not know this. Imagine my surprise when I get here and I find out that Crane is the third largest naval installation in the world by size. We are 33% larger than the city of Washington, D.C. Over 62,000 acres, 1,800 weapons magazines. We have a railroad through the Army. We've got lots of roads. It's amazing. And we also have this other area about an hour northwest of the base called Lake Glendora Test Facility, which is an old strip mine that's now filled with water where a bunch of other testing goes as well. So that's Crane. Turns out NSA Crane is the third largest employer, or actually Crane as a whole is the third largest employer in Southern Indiana behind IU and Toyota, right? So surprise. What has Crane done? Well, Crane was established about a week before the Japanese bombing at Pearl Harbor. No joke. The whole reason behind it was to ensure that munitions would be safe from bombardments, either via the Pacific or the Atlantic Ocean. So Crane seemed like a good central location. Well, the war happened, it started, World War II, we entered the war. What has Crane done since then? A lot. If you kind of see in the late 50s and 60s, you'll see a lot of stuff that was strategic weapons, i.e. intercontinental ballistic missiles. In the early 70s, there was the advent of the EA-6B Prowler, one of the first dedicated electronic warfare aircraft, and Crane plays a pivotal role in that as well. You see in 1977, Crane Army Ammunition Activity, otherwise known as CAAA, was stood up, and I'll talk about them a little bit later. And then you had the Aegis program, which is kind of resident on the cruisers and destroyers we have, as well as some more partnerships. The global war on terror kicked off in 2001, as many of us remember. And from that time, Crane has constantly evolved in its mission set, most notably with support to special operations forces out there. And Crane's mission continues to evolve and support the warfighter. So what do we do? Great question. Crane has often been shrouded in mystery, right? What goes on there? I don't know. So many, I've heard everything from we raise monsters to we have giant fish in the lake, which we kind of do, but don't tell no one, all right? So a lot of good stuff goes on there. So we have three big partner commands, okay? So NSA Crane, that is the base. Think of me as the mayor. So I'm in charge of fire, security, infrastructure, so public works, and morale, or lack thereof sometimes, right? So I get that. Then we have two big partner commands. The first one is NSWC, or Naval Surface Warfare Center Crane. They do three primary areas: strategic missions, right? Electronic warfare, and expeditionary warfare. So that kind of encompasses the first kind of 3 or 4 up there that you see the bullets, right? Trusted microelectronics, a lot of the components that go in objects that fly and go fast, okay? So there's that. Strategic weapons, we're talking hypersonics, we're talking ICBM support as well, okay? Electronic warfare, that's the utilization of the electromagnetic spectrum to attack, control, deny an adversary or friendly forces. So basically, your cell phones work or they don't work, right? Stuff like that. And then also expeditionary warfare. What is that? That's when our forces go overseas via the water or on land, a lot of special operations support, a lot of things that go boom as well, and then a lot of other things. So NSWC does a lot of research, development, test, and evaluation. They have many people, about 4,700 people, okay? CAAA, or Crane Army Ammunition Activity, they have about 750 or so, okay? But what they do is they do the production, distribution, renovation, and demilitarization of joint conventional munitions. Okay, so they also hold a very big job out there. And you'll see kind of pictures, everything that's representative there is something that Crane as a whole supports. So the Growler does the electronic warfare. You got the special operations forces with the weapons and the night vision optics. You see the ICBM coming out of the water, the munitions, and then flares coming out of that C-17. So there's my nod to our joint Air Force partner. I got you, buddy, right? Cool. Population is over 6,000 and growing, okay? The majority of which are gonna be Department of the Navy or DoD civilians. You're gonna have a smaller subset of contractors, and the smallest number is gonna be active duty military personnel. And again, we do a lot of stuff there. So let's talk about the economy and our ties to the community and what we do here. So we mentioned kind of the military mission and stuff, but how do we support Indiana as a whole? Well, I mentioned that we are the third largest employer in Southern Indiana. We do a lot, $3 to $4 billion annually that Crane and its people and missions bring into the economy. That's a lot. I didn't know that until I got this job, okay? We obviously do a lot with our workforce as well. We're constantly trying to build that pipeline. That's the term we use in sports, right? The recruiting pipeline. So that's going out there with the academics, with our schools, with our trusted partners to try to make sure that we want to keep everyone here in Indiana local. Like, hey, come work at Crane. We've got some great opportunities, some great salaries. Let's keep that technology and that know-how knowledge here in Crane, okay? You'll see the NSWC, yep, $2 billion in fiscal year 23. And that's just what we know about kind of right now. Again, it's always constantly growing. Army, so CAAA is looking at $450 million plus over the next seven years, and NSWC is doing something similar as well. So this is going to be new buildings, new renovations, new projects that are coming here. Talked about mutual aid. Hey, my fire department does a lot of mutual aid with about the 13 counties or so that are down there. So mutual aid, so fire, EMS, we help out our communities and our neighbors. That's something we're very proud of, and we also invite them in to kind of help develop it. And then Westgate. Who's heard of Westgate? Show of hands, please. Okay, this is awesome. So this is outside the western gate of my base. It's a very original name, Westgate, right? We got that going. But hey, check this out. We got the microconductors, semiconductor facilities coming. That's poised to bring in about 3,700 new employees. 3,700 jobs starting at $85,000 and above projected, okay? Oh, wow, and that's not even talking about the 11,000 or so personnel that are gonna help build, construct, and support the facilities. On top of that, there's a good chance, and I'll just stay there, I'll say wink, wink. There's a good chance that there's probably going to be other follow-on projects coming along. All in said, a potential for 6,000 personnel to be there, new jobs at Westgate. So you ask yourselves, well, why are you telling me this? Why does it matter? Well, I'll tell you what, it's a symbiotic relationship. I heard that on The Lion King, right? Circle of life, yep. It's a great learning lesson. So why? So Crane, we have our employees who come from the communities, much like IU. They come here, they work, but then they go back out to the communities, right? So we're all included together with our schools, our children, what we do to support our infrastructure and the dollars to go support, and it comes back and forth. So if you're talking about 6,000 additional personnel potentially working at Westgate in the vicinity, well, what happens when they start getting married and have spouses and they have children? Now you start looking at projection of 12, 18, 24, 30,000 new people over a next coming generation. Well, they've got to live somewhere. They've got to shop somewhere. They got to eat somewhere. So this is something that a lot of people we haven't thought about yet. So a lot of new boon and growth coming to Southern Indiana as a whole related to Crane and Westgate. Community engagement is a huge piece. Here I am, right? Trying to get out into the community, trying to say, hey, let's cut down that civ-mil or the civilian military divide. What does that mean? Hey, you're wearing these funny pajamas that are green. You got to be different than me. No, we're actually very similar. In fact, we probably do a lot of the same things together. It's breaking down those walls to ensure that, hey, we maybe speak differently or use different words, but I'll tell you what, we have a lot of things in common. And I'm probably coaching your children's soccer and basketball teams, or you're probably teaching my children at school, right? You get what I'm saying? So we do a lot of stuff there. Compatible land use. Hey, we care about the environments at Crane. People often think the military doesn't care about the environment. They just want to go blow things up and just go, rage around the skies on afterburner. And we do rage around the skies with loud jets. You don't have it here, unfortunately. I'm trying to fix that. But I'm joking. It's a joke, all right? But we care about the environment tremendously, right? And Mark is my CIPLO, Community Planning Liaison Officer. He is the guy for the base that makes sure, hey, compatible land use. Let's have some buffer. We don't want to disturb our neighbors and our friends out in town. We want to make sure that they don't kind of grow into areas where they probably shouldn't be as well, right? And then Bruce, the public affairs piece is huge. You'll see the right-hand sign. We do a lot of coordination. If there's any operations or exercises we're going to do, we want to make sure we're being good stewards with our neighbors to let them know and minimize potential disruption as well. And in the middle, you might see a couple of good schools there, right? IU, Purdue, Notre Dame. right? Southern Indiana, and of course, everyone's favorite community college, Ivy Tech. We do a lot of work with all our partners as well, right? We have opportunities, and I'll speak to in a couple slides. Starting here, we had a McKinney Climate Fellow recently, and we're trying to continue to do that. What are they doing? They're coming down here. We're getting them out there to work on the environments. We're getting out there to kind of get hands-on jobs to say, we're trying to work with IU. We are working with IU and other institutions to say, how can you help us tackle a problem we haven't thought of a solution to? Or, hey, is there a way we can do something better? Additionally, we're trying to build that pipeline, and that's where Ivy Tech is huge, and we love that partnership, right? Because it's, look, you got the vocational trade. People think, well, it's a lot of high-tech jobs, especially NSWC. Yes, NSWC has a large number of PhDs in highly technical job opportunities. Fact. And CAAA is getting in there as well, right? But you start thinking about, well, there's a lot of other stuff. I mentioned public works. I've got a public works department of about 400 personnel. So that's road maintenance, electricity, water, so HVAC, and the automotive. We have a fleet of large vehicles. So we're constantly looking for the people to help us there, and who's going to provide that? And of course, I've got fire, I've got security needs as well. So that's where the criminal justice and the fire programs, EMS, where that comes in handy as well. My 3 things, all right? You always hear commanders' intents, and some of them are 3 pages long, and no one reads them, no one remembers them. I don't have time for that, all right? Short and to the point, concise comms. Mission, installation, people. I gotta make sure the mission happens, always. I gotta make sure the installation is up and running and safe. I've got to take care of my people. And you ask, well, which one's more important? Well, it kind of depends sometimes because they can be interchangeable, right? If I don't take care of my people, people are our greatest asset and our greatest resource. So if I don't take care of my people, I've got no one to do my mission. I've got no one to run the installation, and vice versa. You see what I'm saying? Modernization is a huge thing. We mentioned, right, crane, 1941, 1942 timeframe. That is World War II era. That's a lot of old infrastructure that needs to be updated and replaced. And that's not unique to crane. That is all over. So we've got to modernize it. I usually have a slide of an old B-17 Flying Fortress flying, and I wish I would have included it here. But you say, hey, would you take a B-17, a World War II bomber, if you think of a Masters of the Air, that new program on Apple TV? Would you fly that in a modern conflict right now? No, you would not. It's not survivable. It can't fly fast enough. It can't defend itself. So why would you fight a base that's a World War II? You've got to modernize, right? So absolutely. So that's something we're definitely looking at right there. Infrastructure and resiliency is the key. We got to upgrade our infrastructure. We're working on that, right? We're working on looking at potential partnerships and agreements with our surrounding communities as well for electrical, for water, for wastewater, for other types of road support, working with Indiana Department of Transportation as well. What can we utilize to leverage our partnerships where there's experts out there who can help us do something better? Workforce development, kind of alluded to that already. Constantly trying to build up that recruiting pipeline, if you will. Hey, let's keep the people here in Indiana, let's keep them here. Right? We don't want them to go elsewhere. Let's offer them great opportunities. Let's give them the great technology and what they need to be successful to go ahead and make Indiana the best state it can be within the United States and to go ahead and support my mission as well. Community outreach and collaboration. I'm out there with the schools. We all are. Captain Bunyabas, who's the new commanding officer of NSWC. Colonel Taylor, she's the new commander of CAAA, and myself. And our staffs, we're constantly out there, getting out there to the schools, to local communities, to engagement. What can we do better for you? What can we help you with? What do you need? Is there something that we can do that we haven't thought about yet? Just because it's been done this way in the past doesn't mean it's the right way, or doesn't mean that's how we should do it going forward either, right? We've got to continue to evolve, and that's the mission we're trying to push out there with our community partners as well. Collaboration, the parades. I love it. That's me giving the keys to my jet to the little kid, you know? No, it's candy. And then mission support to the commands and the warfighter out there. All right, what does that mean? Sometimes, again, like myself, I didn't know we had a military presence here in the state of Indiana, but we do. And it's a critical presence, critical. And I can't tell you exactly how critical it is, but it is. Just please believe me on that, okay? So what does that mean? We're constantly trying to bring new resources, new jobs, new things to Crane as a whole and our surrounding partners. We work joint, as Eric had said. We work through the old services. We work with our communities because, again, we can't do it without you, right? You're a part of Team Crane. It's not just the 3 commands on that installation. Team Crane is our surrounding community as well. And that's what makes us go, because without you all, we can't do what we do. I support that. And thank you for your support as well. So I wanted to get through this because I'm not a guy who likes to brief, but I'll brief. I'd rather answer your questions, all right? So I'll go ahead and kick it over at this time. And if I can't answer your question, I will just say I can't answer that question. Awesome.
Can you tell me, as a naval officer, what you've learned from afar watching the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and in particular, the Ukrainians' ability to sink Russian ships?
It's a great question. I'm going to have to respectfully say I can't comment on that at the moment.
Thank you. Yeah, excuse me for my voice, but I want to know how you deal with healthcare for all the people on the base and around it.
Yes.
Healthcare provision.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for that question. So Crane is slightly different from every other institution or installation I've been to. I've been at Norfolk, which is the world's largest naval base by people, right? Over 100,000 personnel. I've been to San Diego and stuff, and we have dedicated military healthcare facilities there for the active duty military uniformed population. We don't necessarily have that at Crane. We have a small occupational health clinic for the majority of our civilian workforce, but it doesn't really help the few of us in uniform. We have to go out in town, right? Which is awesome. I'll tell you what, you guys got a good deal with that. I tell you, it's different. But that's something we do for dental and for medical, okay? Now, with respect to veterans, there's a lot of veterans in the state of Indiana, and we're trying to work that. So Bruce has actually reached out to the VA most recently, and they're gonna show up on base in a couple of weeks with a few of our other VA partners to just put that word out there to say, hey, what can we do to help? Hey, can we help you with your paperwork, with your claims? And we try to put that out as well. We're trying to work with the other VA clinics in the area as well to put that information out. Yes, ma'am, what else?
For families of your people. Daycare and healthcare for children and women.
Oh, that's a great question as well, ma'am. So the healthcare piece, so that goes on the plan for whoever's working, if they work for CAAA, NSWC, or NSA. So that's kind of that plan. I can't address that too much. With respect to the childcare thing, that is something that comes up, and it doesn't matter if you're military or not, right? Hey, how can we provide childcare for mom or dad or spouses to go and work? If there's no childcare available, it makes it really hard. It's a limiting factor for personnel to join the workforce. That's something we're exploring as well with our community partners in the region to try to work for. That's something they've all identified as well as a problem. So more to follow on that. Thank you, ma'am, for that question.
Homie, you haven't even been in your job a year yet, and you seem to have both hands firmly on the throttle there. You seem so passionate about Crane and about your current assignment. How soon did you start to become passionate about it? And number two, what do you tell your former colleagues when they say, homie, who did you piss off?
It's a great question. Great question. So we'll start with the first one. This is just how I've always been, right? People are like, hey, do you put on a persona? You put on shows? Like, no, man, this is just me. I talk to admirals and generals the same way I talk to you. I talk to my team, my junior officers. This is how I've always been. It's kind of worked out so far, thankfully, right? So that I know, I haven't, frustrated anyone yet. As far as like, it's also my personality as an aviator, right? So in the Navy, we say, hey, there's different communities. So I love them all right? I love it all because it's gonna come off differently. But usually kind of if you're a ship driver, a submarine officer, if you're a Navy SEAL, whatever, you kind of have a certain community persona about you. The best way I can probably say it is like similar to being in high school, right? You have band, band people, you have the drama, you have the arts, you have the jocks. It's something similar to that without being like that. In aviation, we're very laid back. We're very laid back and we're very chill and we like to have a good time. We have a switch and we know when to turn it on and turn it off. And I'd say most military personnel are like that, right? The professionalism. That being said, as a naval aviator or a naval flight officer doing naval aviation stuff, things just go so fast. So I don't have the privilege to sit and think about a problem for minutes or hours at a time. It's, do I have the best 80% solution and the information, and can I act on that? So I kind of take that mindset to this job right here, which is maybe a little bit different how it's been in the past, where if I see a problem, let's fix it. If there's something we can do better, let's do it. If you have a plan that will be far better than anything we've thought about it, let's try that. So that's that piece. The second piece about kind of like, I didn't think I would be a base commander, to be quite honest. I was like, hey, I'm going to go back into naval aviation. That's what I know. So it was kind of interesting for me when I'm like, wow, I don't know how to be a base commander. No one's ever taught us that. And that's unique to many of the installation commanders, at least in the Navy. We all come from being a submarine officer, a ship officer, a naval officer, or excuse me, aviator, right? So it's kind of like a steep learning curve as well. When did I get excited about it? The day I stepped foot, because it was new. I was like, it's gonna be a challenge, and here's where you gotta rely on your team. So Eric, you said like, hey, these are the guys that make it happen. Absolutely. This is the first time I've had to work with civilians as well. Let me explain what that means. In my squadrons, it's all military personnel. And the way we fix issues is if something's wrong, I'm gonna fix it in 30 seconds or less. If this person is wrong for the job, they're no longer in that job, right? It's a different mindset here. I also realized that the civilians bring a whole wealth of knowledge and wisdom with them as well, a different way of doing things, a different opportunity, and I love that about them, right? It's a different resource. It's utilizing your team and their strengths to kind of win the game and push the ball further down the field in that football analogy right there. But as far as I know, I didn't make anyone mad yet, but I'm pretty sure I have. So no, thank you for that question. Appreciate it.
Leslie Green, you have a question online. Can we get that from you?
Yes, I wonder, there's a lot of talk now about extremism within the military. And I wondered if you have concerns about that. And if so, or how are you watching for that kind of thing?
Thank you for that question. There's no room for that in the military. We have no room for that. We have no room for, I want to make sure I use the right words here. No room for sexism, for racism, for any of that mindset. We just don't. It's not conducive to a team building environment, okay? And I'm just gonna tell you kind of how I feel about it. I don't care where you're from or what you look like or who you love. I don't. What I care about is, can you do the job and can I trust you? And if that's the answer, then we're good. And I feel like most military leaders feel that way as well. So to that question. Thank you.
This is great, instructive, inspiring, really outstanding. I'm very excited being formally involved in local government about your collaboration model and reaching out around various issues. And one of them is housing. So of course, when I hear your presentation, I think, wow, where are all these people going to live? And the county and the city here in Monroe County are struggling with that. And I know it's really a national issue. And so I'm enthused about the possibility of some kind of formal collaboration as you look forward like 10, 15, 20 years, which is not always what happens in local government. This is, I think, a great opportunity to sit down with you, with some of the county officials and city officials and the university and say, what can we do together moving forward on addressing this issue? And of course, building on Charlotte's point about health as well, we have a doctor shortage here, so it's already hard to get to see a doctor. So there's so many opportunities to collaborate, and the fact that you have this mindset to say together, you know, we can even do more, I'm very enthused about. So just, that's a comment more than a question.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And to that piece real quick on the housing, working with our team out there, our CIPLO, IEDC, ROI, these are some, you know, groups that help us in all we do. And again, my whole thing is breaking down stovepipes, right? We got to communicate, we got to collaborate to win and succeed, and that's in anything. So to that point, sir, thank you for that. And we're working to find out what are the best solutions for everyone going forward. Where can we build houses? What are those prices going to be? What's going to spur that growth and development? And it's kind of trying to look at the bigger picture. So thank you, sir, for that.
So to that same end, what would be your wish list from support or investment at the state level that would make quality of place better for Crane to attract those people and support them?
It's a great question. Thank you for answering that, or for asking that, let me say. So you always wish you had more, right? But I'm gonna be quite honest, like sometimes you wish you had more and you needed more, okay? To that point, I think the things we can influence and affect right now are quality of life. Hey, what can we bring to like this region to increase quality of life, to make people want to come here more? Most people outside of Indiana, well, most people within Indiana don't even know about Crane, honest. Much less outside of Indiana, most people don't know about it. So imagine my chagrin kind of when I get orders to Crane, I'm like, what is that? Where is that? What do they do there? Then I get here, I'm like, oh my, wow, I had no clue. I'm glad I'm here. What's going to make people want to come? Because a lot of people come from the coast or from bigger cities or bigger areas, and that's not right or wrong. It's just different, right? So a lot of people, the younger talent you're trying to attract, is going to be family age, younger, 30s or 40s. So they're going to need schools. They're going to need healthcare. They're going to need transportation. They're going to need entertainment. They're going to need things that they can do, you know, to make them want to say, I never thought of Bloomington. I've never thought of Southern Indiana. That's awesome. That's why I want to go there. I think of like Boise. I think of like Colorado, some areas like that that weren't fully developed until a couple years ago. Something shows up and then it just blossomed from there. No, great question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Soon after I came to Indiana, I learned that people from Crane were in the Pentagon building when we had the 9/11 attacks. And I've known people in all the parishes where I've served that have worked at Queen, but it's sort of inaccessible. It's sort of, you used the word mysterious. So finally, a parishioner finally said to me, on a Saturday, I'll take you through. And I got to see the beautiful lakes and everything there. But why do you make it so inaccessible so people can't find out more about it?
It's a great question, right? So Crane has been the Navy's best kept secret for many years. And that's good, but sometimes it has the opposite effect, right? Because if you don't know what goes on there, then no one can know to want to do business or to want to help you or collaborate, like for example, the academic institutions, right? So to that point, that's something I'm working on personally, right, in my team. We're opening it up for like field trips for the schools, right? So I'm talking about the pipeline, the education, not saying you have to come work at Crane or be in the military, but hey, just know what the opportunities are. Know what you could potentially do. Science or STEM, right? A lot of that stuff, finances, etc. Trying to open up to our community leaders as well, slowly. Trying to show them to kind of break that stigma. So you'd be like, hey, dude, we don't do crazy stuff back here. It's actually pretty normal, pretty constrained. Like, come check it out. You're part of that team. So that's something we're definitely starting to work on, sir, going forward. Hope that answers that. Yes, sir.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you for sharing this information. How diverse is your community, and what are some things that you do to create a sense of community within the base?
When you say community, are you talking to Crane or Naval Aviation?
Crane.
Crane, got it. I think both going off the demographics, the majority of personnel that work there are going to be male, just by the statistics. But with NSWC, like I said, a lot of them have PhDs or master's degrees, very technical stuff. CAAA, they're getting there as well, kind of because as they're making a pivot towards what they're starting to work on for the future, which is amazing, amazing stuff as well. But they tend to be mostly people from here in Indiana, to ask the question. Now, there are more personnel coming from different backgrounds that are starting to work at Crane. They're starting to kind of be the younger generation coming in, because we do have an aging population on the installation, which is just normal, that at some point they're going to have to retire. We're all going to retire at some point. So they tend to be a little bit older, right? So the newer generation that's coming in, to answer your question, they do tend to be a little bit more diverse in their backgrounds as well.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
It's fantastic to have you with us. So Pamela Whitten, our president and our provost, are very involved in this idea of Indiana impact for Indiana University, you know, what we're doing to really connect to the state in a more meaningful way. How can Bloomington and all of its resources, IU, think about, you know, the sort of the range of things that IU has to offer, as well as the Bloomington community? What can we do to offer Crane as you build and develop your base?
Great question. Thank you for that. We are already collaborating, Crane and the commands on board with IU as a whole. We are working with the Bloomington Economic Development Chamber as well. Kind of that whole like, hey, did you guys know that we have this big old base down there? And a lot of the people that work down there live up in Monroe County. Oh no, we didn't know that. So there's some of that already happening, right? The other piece is the support starting. So we're having the initial conversations. That's where it's got to start. And then from there, it's kind of seeing, well, we need something here. Can you provide that? Well, actually, we can't. And then it goes, what else can you provide? What else do you need? So it's kind of vague. I got to be vague for a reason, but those conversations are starting to happen, and I love where we're going. So thank you for that support. Absolutely.
So first of all, now I understand why Stranger Things was set here in Indiana, so thank you. But in all seriousness, and kind of tying on to what Alan said, as I think about Cook, about Boston Scientific, and all the growth that we're seeing there, in addition to Crane, again, how are they working together in addition to IU? At what point are you able to truly start laying the plans as a team? Because it feels like we've got silos operating that are showing growth. And that's not as successful. That's not as quick as you would need.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Great question. That's what my son asked me. Hey, Dad, you seen Stranger Things? That happened in Indiana, right? I was like, yeah. That's where you're going, right? It's like, I can neither confirm nor deny, right? So Yes, absolutely. That was my number one thing, breaking down the stovepipes when I showed up. What does that mean? You're working on a project, we're actually duplicating efforts, but we don't know because we don't talk to each other. So that has started to break down inside the base as a whole with NSWC, CAAA, and ourselves. So that's one. Secondly, now we're starting to, as Crane gets out there in the environments of Indiana and elsewhere, we're starting to see like, wow, I didn't know Crane could do this. What else can you guys do? A lot of the things you mentioned are starting to happen without being specific. A lot of the investigation, a lot of the possibilities, a lot of like, is this something we can actually do? That's occurring now. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening with NSWC and CAAA that I can't speak to, unfortunately, here, but it's along the lines of what you're kind of like alluding to. Like there's a lot of change coming in a positive way, a lot of growth and development, and it's going to be pretty amazing the next couple of years what happens out of Crane.
So thank you for the presentation. So when you mentioned the environment in the Crane's activity, I was pretty interested. So could you elaborate on what kind of environmental concern the Navy has, and if it is more concerned about the environmental consciousness, or is it related to the operations and Navy's fighting strength?
Great question. Thank you for asking that. We have this awesome environmental program here. Many environmental personnel within the department, they look at everything. We have a forestry department. It's a massive forest. Again, never been here before, massive forest. So forestry department taking care of our trees, making sure the impact to the water is good, making sure it's not negative, let me put it that way, making sure the protected species that may or may not be there are safe as well, making sure that our operations are always inclined with the EPA and the regulations. You would be surprised, it would actually surprise you how much we actually reach out to the EPA on a weekly basis to ensure that we are not doing anything to harm the environment or the local, inhabitants and the animals and stuff like that too. So that's usually the first thing in everything we do. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Commander.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It really makes me proud to be an American, to have naval officers like we've heard from today. Great representation of the Navy. A donation will be made to the Sycamore Land Trust in honor of your presentation today, Commander. I do want to acknowledge people who made this meeting work today. Obviously, Natalie in the back of the room, who's always there to help us. Liz Thompson, who was our greeter. Stacy Bruce, who made the introductions. Joy Harder online, who made things work there. Trent Deckard, making us all confident today. Alon Barker, who has the awesome task of being the reporter today. Michael Shermas, who was our camera and mic operator, and obviously Tyler Martin Nichols for our producer of this program. Next week, we will be in the Stateroom East, so come early to get a seat. We will have John Summerlot from IU speaking on preparing for emergencies and disasters at IU. That ought to be a very interesting presentation. And I'd also like to add that Tracy is volunteered to help develop the friendship baskets for the district convention. Friendship basket means that people go to the friendship room and bid on baskets that have a lot of things that we bring. So if you want to donate a bottle of wine or something else that represents our club, talk to Tracy and we'll get this set up for the district convention. So thank you for that. Now, if you'll please stand and join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, and believe. First, is it the truth? Fair, is it all concerned? All concerned. Third, will it bid goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun?